Hello and welcome. I am Maziao, and so today I want to talk about Games Workshop, but it's not. It's going to sound negative. Don't get me wrong, but it's not that negative. It's just something that I wish to talk about because over the past 20 years, wargaming has grown. It has evolved. It has definitely become a more of a bigger hobby for people to get invested into. Whereas, many aspects of wargaming, as I've said before, it's one of those hobbies which just spans genre after genre, many types of games, many types of model, from just paper and or little bits of plastic, by the way, to big models and massive rule sets. Yet here's the thing: Games Workshop's meant to be the market leader. They're meant to be the one that everyone looks up to. That's the one who's leading the way within wargaming itself. Yet, for some reason, especially in their flagship, the Warhammer 40k, the Warhammer 40k, Warhammer 40k, I should say, they kind of are backwards, or I don't know if they're deliberately stymieing the growth of 40k to correspond with what the market is doing. And we're not just talking price here, because prices are all about the place. Something like Mantic and Warlord Games are on the more extreme cheap end, whereas Conquest and 140k are pretty much average. And then you've got even more expensive ones like anything that has Marvel or Star Wars attached to it. So, this is the thing I've been trying to work out. 140k, when it comes to what the market and other war games are doing, seems to be either very backwards or very slow at embracing these new ideas. And the odd thing is, the first thing I'm going to talk about is activations. I move, you shoot, I shoot, you shoot, etc., etc. And that's what is becoming the more prolific way of playing in wargames. Wildest Exodus does it, Mantic does it, Conquest does it, Warlord Games does it. No, Bolt Action does it a different way, which I kind of think is kind of cool. But Judge Dredd does it. So that's the first thing. Why aren't they embracing this way of movement, way of play? Because it is a very fast way of playing. It speeds up the game no end, and some people I hear say, "Oh, it means you don't have the it's a idiot's way. So it makes you seem stupid." No, it doesn't. I've got to disagree with that argument straight away, because if you know every movement of someone's army in one turn, you can do that. You can oppose every single movement of all of it. Whereas if it's like a single unit or a single model, you've got to sort of think on the fly. It means more reaction and instinctual play, as well as actually trying to work out what you have to do next, model per model, rather than army per army. And also, you kind of end up, I know this has been said by many people, but it's true. You end up just doing saving rolls, and that's all you're interested in. And one person's turn, say they're doing a horde army like Imperial Guard or the Orcs or Tyrannus, can seem really boring while you're just sitting there waiting for your turn to happen or to begin. And it's sort of a thing. The reason you bring a codex is obviously the rules, but you can also just bring the codex because you're going to get bored because you need something to read. And this slow embrace of this mechanic, which, like I said, is being embraced by every other company, is a kind of a silly way to do for your flagship. I would like to see it in 40k. I think it would actually improve 40k no end. However, they're meant to be the market leaders. They should be the ones that have led the charge with this mechanic, and not the ones left behind when everyone else is doing it. The other one is data sheets. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Data sheets should be free. They should be able to be downloaded. They should be able to be produced. This isn't saying get rid of codexes or codices, whichever way you want to do it. And because they do have a use externally, which I'll get to in a second. Whereas the data sheets, they should be able to just be downloaded for you. We're not talking just like on something unofficial like Battlescribe, but on their websites. Mantic does this. Warlord Games does it via their app as well. There's also, of course, Conquest does it. Warcradle does it. I will say there seems to be a thing with IP ones that it doesn't happen so often. But then again, all the rules are in the rulebook. So that's the other thing. If they're not going to do the data sheets for free, then at least put all of these data sheets in the rulebook, so they're there and available from the off. It also helps balance the game out when everything's out on day one in the rulebook. And on the back of that, like, codices do have a use for people who like the lore and like the story behind it and want to read more into it. That's a good use for the codex, right? I have no issues with that. I think that's quite cool. But we're talking about just the data sheets here. So, because some people might not want to be into the lore. The lore is a separate part of the hobby. It's, if anything, you can say reading the lore is part of the hobby of that. It's called reading, not wargaming. You see? And so yeah, no, I've got no issues with codices or codexes, whatever. And because it's kind of cool to see, the lore evolve. It's good doing interesting reads. Now, going ahead with that downloading thing, because they do have their app and they do have the options to actually have it on your phone, even though you have to pay extra for it. There's another thing, by the way. On the app, some companies, Mantic, will limit the amount of armies you can do, but you have all use of all armies. I believe Wargames you can do all armies, build as many armies as you like. I believe. Those are the two apps that I do know of. Conquest is as many armies as you like on their app. So that you can have only one army on the app, but you have to buy the codex to unlock the army once it's dropped. Again, another issue. Why is that Why is that a thing where no one else is doing, but you have to buy something externally to use it on the app? That's again something that why is Games Workshop behind on this when every other company is ahead of it. Now, the final thing that's still about data sheets is when it is downloaded and when it is on the app or on the internet or, somewhere like that, all the other companies have noticed any FAQs, erratas, etc., or, updates, they don't just print out what's changed. When you go to the rule sheets themselves, when you go to the rulebook, which you can download, it's actually been changed itself. So when they update the rules, they update the rulebooks as well. And again, this is something that Games Workshop doesn't do. You download the app, right, and then you get the FAQ for whatever codex you buy, but the one on the app is still going to be incorrect. It's still going to be wrong. And whereas if you go to War Cradle or Conquest, Power Battle Games is absolutely excellent for this. They say, okay, we've got these updates on the rules here. You just have to re-download the original rules, and that's it. You can just, overwrite the old ones because it's still the rulebook with the changes needed for your next game. Rather than having, your codex, the rulebook, and whatever FAQs and erratas that you need on top. Like I said, it's kind of weird with Games Workshop and their flagship company that they are so behind everyone else. From the movement, from the way the game plays, to the way you get your rules, to the way you get the rules for your specific army as well. We're all behind everyone else, and they're meant to be the market leaders. And in the end, I know it's like I said, sounds negative, but it's more of a concern because it means Games Workshop could kind of end up just not be. They will end up losing to their competition because people want to go, well, I want to buy my models, but I don't want to do all this nonsense on top. I don't want to download several pages of rules just on movement alone. Yeah, that happens to be a thing, and I don't know why. So, I understand with physical copies, they can't just reprint the physical copy. I'm not talking about reprinting the physical copies here. I understand that. I'm just saying they should be updating the rules as they go. And just to make it easier on everyone, rather than making the game far more getting into the game, I should say, far more complicated than it needs to be. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this? I hope you all have a lovely day, and I hope you're having a good time, actually. But I want to hear your thoughts on this and what you think. I'll see you all in the next one, and have a great day. As always, there's Wayland Games down below. If you wish to save money on your Wargaming, up to 20% off, free delivery after £20, and with their point system, it sort of works out an extra 1% on top of that. There's Forbidden Planet book comics, DVDs, mangas, etc. That's all cool. There's my merchandise, my comics as well. The links are down there below. If you want, especially if you want to see Little Red Riding Hood go ham on some Lovecraftian werewolf monsters. Cyborgs, that's the one. And there's Skyforge, never get Skyforge, good friend of mine. And finally, Patreon, because business. Bye bye.